In this video, we're gonna create an enclosure for this bad boy, a 3-gallon dry sump oil tank, so that if a leak or an explosion or a fire happens, it doesn't get inside the cabin. Let's jump in. All right, so here's what we're working with inside the cabin here. We can put one, or option one is to put it here, which is probably the simplest install because we just, build some brackets for it and then build a cage around it and then run the wire or the hoses underneath the car. Option two is to put it up front here, and I think I'm leaning that way. Reason being is the install will be harder and refilling it I think will be slightly harder here, putting oil back into it because it'll be covered by the dash. Although it won't be particularly easy back here because there's a full-size seat back here that you're going to be working with that'll be about this tall, so you'll have to work around it to get access to this and have to build a door on top that gives you access to the filler here. So neither is particularly easy to work with, and this is better for weight distribution. But a couple things I'm not a huge fan of, or the biggest thing I'm not a huge fan of, is running the hoses. So not only for the hoses for this one, do you have to run them underneath the car and take a pretty aggressive 90-degree bend right on the other side of this part. It makes the hoses long, and I have to run 3 hoses for this. So there are the 2 returns, coming from the dry sump pump on the engine, or I should scavenge lines, and then there's the return back to the pump for fresh oil on the bottom there. 2 of those are -16 and one of them is a -12. Those are big hoses. That's a long run, so a lot of hose. And it leaves the hose underneath the car where it's exposed. You could run it through the cabin of the car, of course, which would be a much cleaner or safer install for the hoses, but it also means if the hose bursts, it gets oil all over the car. Unlikely, but stranger things have happened. Putting it here is obviously the tightest install and the most annoying to refill, but like I said, neither is particularly compelling to refill. And this one keeps it pretty safe. Both of the vent and then the 2 scavenge lines can go right through that hole. And then the return line, I think I can poke through there and then out underneath the car. And that keeps all the lines pretty safe, away from any obstruction, and they're short. And then for drain, there's a hole on the underside of this right about here. So there's a little box. If you look in there, you can see the little pedestals. That's where the K-member for the front bolts to in the back, right? And there's a little box under there, and right about here, there's a hole in that box. So I'm thinking about just going through that box, or through that hole, and basically drilling into this part of the floor and dropping the tank down into that, bolting it to the side here, and then building a box from here over to the front. That fully encloses it. I'll need to build something for the top that I can get on and off fairly easily, or run a hose to the front or something for filling. But that allows me to build something fairly safe contained. Maybe I access it from this side. I don't know. I'll work on that in a second. But that gives me the best option for, I think, safety of the tank. It's a little less advantageous from a weight distribution perspective because obviously a Mustang is a fairly front-heavy car. Putting it back there would be more beneficial from that. But like I said, I do run into the issue with the hose lines, so I'm still thinking through that, whether or not I go with the hose lines this way and underneath the car where they're exposed, or the hose lines through here and out into the front. So after quite a bit of testing and fitting and exploring off camera, I ended up choosing this front location here because I did a little bit of exploration by removing that piece in the floor and some things like that, and I got a feeling that I could make it work. So I went ahead and started to remove the floor here. This was quite the experience to start cutting this much into the floor of the car and into the firewall and stuff, but it wasn't too bad once I got going and kind of got over the fear of it all. At some point, you just hit the point of no return and you just start going for it. But basically, I'm just cutting out little bits at a time here just to, so I don't cut too much and start to regret anything because it's a lot harder to put material back. But once I got to about here, I started to get real close and I realized I just needed to make a few minor adjustments. All right, so project sit rep, I think we're in pretty good shape. So I had to remove a lot more material than I thought just due to the angles of things and kind of where I needed to get it. So we had to remove pretty much that whole part of the box, you know, that came in for the, I think it was the air intake for the HVAC system. But I had to remove all that. I'm gonna have to reinforce and add some of it back in now that I have the added clearance because I needed to get this tank all the way up to the firewall. And then I had to cut into the floor here as well as, you know, this little cavity here I think is a crumple zone because, you know, there's a pretty decent amount of space in there to work with. So I had to cut into that, and then I'm gonna run the oil supply line back to the pump down through there, hopefully. I'm waiting on a fitting to come before I finalize location, you know, the exact location of the tank because I need to verify I can get the oil lines out just like I have planned. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the box that, you know, encloses this so it's not a part of the cabin, because the idea is everything will be accessed through the engine bay, with the exception of I'm gonna put a door on this so I can easily, you know, get in, access and remove these two nuts here, just so I can pull it on and off. But that's the idea, is mount it, enclose it with a box that has a removable door. So I'm gonna get started on that next while I'm waiting for the fittings. Oh, the other thing I liked about this, I was able to move it about 4 or 5 inches further forward than I originally anticipated, which allows me to get access to the fill from here in the engine bay, which is way easier for me to work with and fill and check oil levels and all that kind of stuff. So really happy with that. I don't know yet if I need to, but I can remove a section of this that allows me to pour oil directly down. So I'll probably wait till I have the hood back on the car and I verify that I even want to go through with that. But if I want to, that's an option now. So way easier to work with, way better position for it. All right, so we have the mount fully mocked up. I shouldn't say mocked up. We have the mount fully done. I just need to do a little finish welding. Sorry, I'm moving something out of the way. Okay, so we have the mounts done. I have a little bit of finish welding to do on this top mount, but generally speaking, it's nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. I went with one on one side and then one on the front here. That gives us a couple different triangulation there for the mounting, and ensures kind of the ratio of where I needed it to be, not ratio, the angle of what I need it to be is a good fit, because I didn't want it to lean too much side to side, and I didn't want it to have too much play there because of the way it pokes through in the bottom. So as you can see down here, oh well, I'm not sure how well this is showing. There we go. So this is the output for it, and at first this might look like a bad place, but there's actually this part of the K-member that comes this way underneath the car. You know, that support, it goes to the bolts right here. So this return back to the pump is actually gonna go along that K-member. So it'll be protected from debris underneath the car. I'll have a nice thing for me to secure it to. But that's a tight fit down there inside the box. as you can see, it's a pretty tight fit. So I really needed this to be in a really secure spot and not move around. So I triangulated it on 2 sides. Really happy with how that came out. So the next step for us is to create the enclosure that hides that. And I've gotten a start on that. And by it hides it, I mean it separates it from the cabin. I'm just having an elegant day of words. But essentially, we need to create an enclosure that separates this entire fuel tank, oil tank, like I was saying about words, separates this entire oil tank from the cabin. So if anything happens, it springs a leak, explodes, or any kind of crazy stuff, it doesn't get inside the cabin of the car and risk up, catching you on fire or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and build an enclosure that basically, creates a 3-sided box. The one thing that's important, it'll be open to the engine bay. So I'll be able to access it through there. And one other thing that was nice is through the angle of this, I can get this off nice and easy. So it's serviceable. And then I haven't fully decided yet. I might leave it like it is, but if I need to, I can cut just a hole here big enough for a funnel. And so this, I'm gonna wait till I get the hood on and everything and check clearances. But if I really need to, I can cut a hole here, put a funnel in, and you pour the oil through there and it drops it down. So we'll see if I need to do that, but happy with how it came out. But back to the enclosure. So I've got my first start here. This is going to go up here. It's basically going to go like this with some tabs here, as you can see. And this is going to allow me to install riv nuts, because one of the things that's important is I want the front part of it here to be removable. So I want you to be able to take the front off so that you can get easy access to the nuts to the straps that hold this in, because this would be super hard to access from inside the car, or sorry, from inside the engine bay. Trying to get it out through there would be, really, really difficult. So I don't want to deal with any of that. I want to make it so you can get in and out of the opening in the car, or at least serviceable inside the car here. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that piece that goes across here to act as a starting point, and then we'll work on the piece that goes along the side here and closes this off, and then the piece that comes off here, off the firewall, and then I'll create the little, door essentially that you remove with some screws and get that all sealed up. So I'm going to go ahead and start mocking up that stuff and continue going after that and making some cuts. And then we're going to get some tack welds in place and start to see what we can do.
All right, voiceover Kevin back here. Sorry for the view. This seemed a lot better when I was recording than it actually turned out. But essentially, what I'm doing is I'm coming in here and I'm sanding down to bare metal everywhere that I'm going to be, or I feel like I'm going to be putting the box for the enclosure that I'm building. I got started here with reinforcing this opening with, adding some material back in. So you can see here I added a piece on the right side to kind of close up that gap a little bit, and then I added a piece here on the left side to add a little bit of structure back in. This would ensure just I had a little bit extra strength, as well as I made the hole a little smaller because I didn't need the hole anywhere near that big. And then of course this was going to give me a nice piece to attach to when I needed to build the enclosure.
All right, so I went ahead, I got those first plates welded in. These are just to add some nice reinforcement and structure back into this part of the engine bay, as well as make that hole smaller so it's a little less unsightly. And I'll need to be working off of that one over there to connect and kind of fully box in this part of the car. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. So as far as what's up next, I got this top plate in as well to act as kind of our starting point. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, I think, the one that goes down the side here and comes out this way. So as I mentioned, I want to put a door, an access door, if you will, inside this to get to the dry sump. And so I want that whole piece to be removable so I can pull the dry sump through here if needed, because that hole probably won't fit it anymore. So but I don't want it to connect here. I want a piece that comes out and then, it connects right about here and just over. So it's a more seamless, I'm not trying to finagle something up against the curvature of the side of the car here. So I'm going to go ahead and create the piece that fits to this curvature of the side of the car, weld that to the chassis, then work on the one over here that welds there, and then we'll be able to just work on this one that's removable here in the front. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. All right, so after much trial and error, I have the two pieces. This guy here is going to go on the side, and that guy over there is going to go on the left side, right side, left side. So it'll come off the firewall here and give this little flange for me to bolt to, and then this one does the same thing, except it just comes off the side here and goes this way. With those in, once those are welded in, I'll have kind of a three-sided enclosure that'll just need to attach that front removable part of the enclosure that allows me to surface the dry sump. I think I'll just need to add a little flange down there, but more or less we'll be ready to go to just create that nice piece and be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and get that welded in, and we'll see what we look like afterwards.
So as you could see in that previous clip, I had already done the top, so that meant I only needed to do the sides and then a little bit on the bottom here to build my box. So I got started by installing that piece on the left side, which I just tag welded in place, and then I laid 1-inch seam welds every so many inches, basically wherever I could find good adhesion to the metal. And then here on the right side, I went ahead and started to do final fitment on this, and that involved a lot of sanding to make sure I was welding to clean metal, and then just finagling and using the level to get it into the right place and right fitment and all that kind of stuff. And once I did that, I went ahead and grabbed the welder and I welded this guy into place as well. And I did that with the same thing like I did on the other side, 1-inch seam welds wherever I could fit them, which was typically about 4 to 5 on each main part of the body, and then a whole bunch on the part where I was welding it to the rest of the box. I then began fitting my door here, and you'll see I actually added a tiny little strip down here at the bottom, and then once I did a test fit of my door, I went and grabbed my rivet nut gun, and I started adding rivet nuts here to attach the door to. So I wanted it so that you could take 10 screws out and pop this door off, or put the 10 screws back on and keep the door there. This would make it stable, secure, easy to remove, and easy to service the dry sump oil tank inside. Alright, so mostly done here. All I have left is throwing a coat of paint on the inside, doing some prepping and painting on the inside. But we're mostly ready to rock and roll. As you can see, we got the mounts here for the oil tank itself. Let me see if I can get you in here. You can see it's right about there, so right above the hole. So the only part I have left to do, which I'm going to do in a later video just due to the logistics, is I need to, create the drain. And essentially you can see the drain's right here, and it's going to go out, and I'm going to create a little bit of an angled run with a hose, but I'm going to put a bulkhead in the bottom of the car there and basically take what is currently a plug right here and put a plug down in the floor that you access from the bottom. So other than that, the oil tank is ready to go. I got the enclosure all mocked up, or not mocked up, sorry, and installed. I got my little door here that goes like this. Once bolted in there, it'll cover it like that, and I've got everything sealed up, so you can see I threw some seam sealer on there. So this is fully enclosed and ready to go. It is fully sealed off from the inside of the car. Even here on the side, there aren't any holes here that would allow oil to go into the cavity there and then come into the car. So we are fully sealed up. I'm super excited. It is now ready for paint. And the car itself is mostly ready for paint now. I think the only thing I have left is to finish weld the roll cage, get that all welded up, and then just scrub everything down, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So I'm really, really happy with where we ended up with this. I think it turned out great, all things considered. And the install's not too bad. When I was preparing to take this video, I wanted to reinstall this oil tank, and I was able to slip it through this doorway. So it fits, it installs. It's going to be super efficient, I think. And because I made it out of 16 gauge, which unfortunately is a little bit of a heavy metal, but fortunately I think it will provide a pretty good brace for people to put their foot against, because I have no doubt that passengers that ride in this car will use this box here for their feet as they're bracing themselves. And it's nice to know that this thing's welded into the chassis. It's 16 gauge steel, so it's going to be able to take a pretty decent amount of pressure as people put on it with their feet. All right, and so underneath the car here, I just wanted to show what this looks like, where the return back to the engine will come out. So as you can see, this sticks out the bottom of the car. I didn't have to open up that hole too much, which is really nice. And if you're wondering where this goes, basically right through here, there will be a cross brace for the K-member. You know, it runs from right over there to about right here of the K-member. So I'm going to follow that on the top side for the hose. So the hose will follow that and go to the pump. It'll clear the headers, and it should have some protection against anything underneath the car because it'll be protected by that brace, and then of course there'll be a belly pan and stuff. So I expect that to be nice and protected. Here's again what it looks like from the inside. I'm really happy with how it came out. If I need to, I might end up drilling a hole here that I can stick a funnel through, but in all honesty, I have a feeling with the right funnel system, I'll be able to just snake through here, you know, put something like a fill, you know, funnel type system here with a hose that fishes down in there. Nice and easy. I can even get decent visibility in there, so I'm not too worried about it. So really, really happy with how all this came out, considering, you know, I'm not using a custom oil tank and all that kind of stuff. While this is no small fabrication project, it is 100% doable in your own garage, and probably the best way to go if you're willing to put the work in and start cutting up your firewall. All right, so I think I'm gonna call this video here. I don't know about you guys and how you felt about it, but I thought that came out really good, all things considered. You know, when I was first starting this video and talking about the kind of the two areas that I could put it, I felt like both were a huge compromise. You know, one was in a better spot for weight distribution, and it would probably be easier because it would modify the car less, but it put the oil lines in areas I didn't like, and the other was a little less great for weight distribution, but it was going to require what I thought was a lot more cutting, and it would be a lot more hassle to fill, check, and you know, service. But I think we came out, you know, where it is. It has very few downsides other than just the fabrication it takes to install it. So I'm really, really happy with how that came out. But I think I'm gonna call this one here. Next video, I'll finish welding up the roll cage, doing a couple brackets and stuff for things like safety nets and all that kind of jazz. And then we'll be ready to paint the car, which means that we can begin reassembly, which is gonna be really fun. And I finally feel like we're really, really making some progress. All right, hopefully I catch you in the next one. Peace.